Arizona football and Arizona basketball have a lot going for them as they head into the Big 12, but there are also some concerns. We're going to break down what those concerns are and all the good stuff.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. This show is brought to you by LinkedIn. Check it out, LinkedIn. All right, Arizona football and Arizona basketball are in very, very good positions right now, as we know. I mean, you got a top 10 basketball team in the country, and you've got a top 25 football team in the country, and so there's a lot to like. But obviously, these teams aren't perfect, so. We are going to talk about what exactly those. We are going to talk about exactly what some of those situations are now, and what some of the maybe some of the drawbacks for each team are. So, why don't we talk Arizona football first? Now, there's a lot of strengths with Arizona football. Obviously, you've got an All-American type quarterback in Noah Fafita. We've all seen what he can do. Everybody knows what he can do. He is absolutely fantastic. But there's also some, T-Mac, obviously great as well. But there are some concerns. I have no concerns about the running back unit. I have no concern about the wide receivers. But the offensive line, I think, you could still look at it and say that's a little bit of a concern because, listen, you've got four really, really good offensive linemen, as we've talked about. I mean, Jonas Sabanea is going to be a first-round pick. Wendell Moy is really, really good. You've also got Leif Magnuson, and you've also got Josh Baker. All those guys are good, but at that other position, I think it's a little bit concerning. What exactly you're going to do with that other tackle spot. Now, again, in theory, it'd be awesome if it was Raymond Polito. Raymond Polito would be, I think, the one that would really make the easiest sense. But like I said, we've talked about a bunch. He is injured, and he is injured quite a bit. So I think it's really hard to be able to bank on him. And we saw last year that if you don't have in the Alamo Bowl, if you don't have a tackle, you could have some real problems. And I think that's something that we have to look at, and you've got to be fairly, circumspect about. But I think your hope is that whether it's Michael Wooten, whether it's Raymond Polito, whether it is Jonah Rodriguez, one of those guys is going to be able to do it. And if that's the case, then the offensive line is going to be just fine. But again, I think that is still the concern, though, is what is the deal with the offensive line? Because we saw it again. I mean, Joe Borhone is no longer here. He has moved on, but you saw that when you have a bad offensive tackle, that it just kind of permeates and sprinkles throughout the rest of the team. That is not something that I think that any Arizona fan wants to see again. The Oklahoma game was obviously very, very difficult to watch on the offensive line. So that is my main concern with the offense, honestly. Listen. You lost Tanner McLaughlin. You don't have any proven contributors coming back really at tight end, but whether that's, this coaching staff is going to use the tight end a lot. They obviously feel very good about Roberto Miranda. I love Kean Burnett as well. You've got Dorian Thomas, you got Olsen, you got other guys. So I think that'll be okay. But a big concern obviously is who is going to be that other offensive tackle. If that other offensive tackle is found, then Arizona is going to be in really, really good shape because honestly, the rest of the offense is loaded. Now, as far as some concerns, I think it's also fair to ask about about the coaching. Now, Dino Babers was the offensive coordinator here for the best team in school history and maybe the best offense in school history, a team that, was obviously loaded. You had Trunk Candidate, you had Dennis Northcutt, you had Jeremy McDaniel, you had Keith Smith, you had Yusuf Scott, you had Edwin Mulatalo, you had I can keep going on and on down the list. You had a plethora of NFL players. I mean, heck, even a guy like Kelvin Efon who didn't play in the NFL. And he still has the record. He had the record for the longest time for touchdowns in a season. But the offenses at Syracuse were not very good. I mean, we can be honest there. They didn't leave a lot to be they left a lot to be desired, especially in the last couple of years. And I think the question with Dino Babers is, does he still have his fastball? If he still has his fastball, then he's going to be good to go. But I think it's also going to be something where you're like, all right, you're going to have to see it, because listen, there's absolutely no reason that that this offense shouldn't be really good. And I think we're going to know very early on, what Dino Babers really has left. Like, I think with Dwayne Aquina, that Dwayne Aquina, his fastball's still there. You saw the difference in the defense from year 1 to year 2. And you watch his energy level and whatnot, and you can just tell that dude still has it. That guy still has it. We're going to find out about Dino Babers. And I think, that's a fair question. Now, moving over to the defense, there's obviously more concerns because you lost a lot of players. A big part of last year's defense was being able to just kind of rotate guys in and out. And Arizona had pretty much 8 linemen that they were able to rotate in and out. And that's what really made, I think, a big part. That's what really made this unit very, very good, is that they were able to do that. Now it's a little bit different. You lost a lot of guys. You lost to Tyler Manoa. You lost to Tia Savea. You lost to Jacob Kangaika. You lost to Deuce Davis. You lost to Taylor Upshaw. You lost to Isaiah Ward. But you did replace them, and that's obviously something that. But you still got 4 or 5 guys that I think you feel really comfortable with. And I mean, we're going to find out. You also don't know if you have that guy who's necessarily going to be able to bend off the edge. And we're going to find that out. And I think we're going to find that out very quickly. But, I think, like we've talked about, I think the front 4 is going to be just fine as far as the starters. I think Trey Smith and Ty, I think both those guys are going to be more than good enough. And then I think with Kevon Darton, Chuba May, then you've also got Isaiah Johnson in there. And Bear Anderson, you should be good. But I do question the pass rushers. I do question where exactly that's going to come from. And I think that's something that Arizona fans are going to, we're going to watch, and we'll figure out exactly how that one does play out. But I don't love that, because I think you've got 2 proven guys, and then you got a bunch of dudes who, you just really don't know where exactly that's going to come from. But I think the tackles are fine. But after that, I think you got to be able to find something, and we'll find out again. But I do have a lot of faith in Dwayne Aquina. I think Dwayne Aquina is going to be able to figure this one out, because just his track record is very, very good, obviously. And I think with his energy, he wants to be able to have a defense that pushes up as opposed to just kind of containing. I'm excited to see it. I'm very much excited to see what exactly he can bring to the table as a DC, and I think he's going to be fully motivated. I mean, you watch Dwayne Aquina, and you know for a fact that this dude wants it, and it's going to be fun to watch. Now, at the linebacker spot, that's another concern, because you got Jacob Manu, but then you don't really have anything else that we know that's proven. Now, again, that could change. Obviously, would love for that to change, but there's also a concern as to what exactly you're going to be able to have there at that linebacker spot next to Jacob Manu, because again, Tay Brown, Justin Flo, you've got some potential there, but at the same time, I think you also wonder, is there going to be anybody else there, or the safety is going to have to be able to hop in there? And, that brings us to the secondary. Dwayne Aquina is an absolute master. Dwayne Aquina is about the best defensive backs coach that college football has ever seen. You look at his resume, you look at who he's produced. It is a who's who of outstanding football players. And, again, his reputation precedes him for what he's been able to do. But I think there are some questions. Listen, at that one safety spot, you're absolutely loaded, obviously. But I think the one thing that you worry about is probably a little bit of that Tacario Davis thing, where Tacario Davis is back, obviously. But I also think it's fair to say, who's going to be that other guy on the other side, because you don't really want to have to put Traden Stukes over at that other corner. I mean, I guess you will if you have to, but that's really not what Traden Stukes is. Traden Stukes is a nickel back that can play, and you want him closer to the line of scrimmage in the slot, stuff like that. You put him to the outside, I think that kind of takes away a little bit from what he can do. So I don't know that that's something that Arizona really wants to deal with, but Dwayne Aquina also is a guy that his track record, like I said, is next to none. And I think we will find out exactly where all of this is. But I am excited to see what Dwayne Aquina can do as that, as the DC. I think he's ready for that. And I think he's fully invigorated. And I think that as Arizona fans, we should be very, very excited to be able to see what he can do. One other thing, too, that we need to be very excited about is LinkedIn, my friends. LinkedIn. Check it out. All kinds of really, really good stuff with LinkedIn. I know people that have gotten jobs through LinkedIn. You probably know people that have gotten jobs through LinkedIn. And I think a big part of it is because it works. That's the thing that is great about LinkedIn. It works. People like LinkedIn. You can hire people. You can look for other folks. And LinkedIn will have you covered the entire way. Check it out. LinkedIn, again, for hiring, for looking for a job. You know that LinkedIn has you covered. It's a great, like I said, it's absolutely fantastic. Check it out. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Post your job for free. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we're going to continue on with the Arizona football, some of the concerns, and we will go backwards from there. But I think the first thing that we want to talk about is we're going to keep with the secondary. The safeties are fantastic. I think with Dwayne Aquina, you're probably like, all right, we just need to find out where, he's going to make it work. But then from a special teams perspective, for basically the entirety of the Jed Fish era, one thing that he did not care about was kick returns. Basically, he just had people go back there and fair catch it. Never understood that. I get that the football is different now than it used to be. Totally understand that, but it's also not something either that I really like, to be honest. I think if you've got somebody like a Pham who can return kicks, you utilize him. That's why he's there. Go ahead and utilize him. You will not. It will be okay. I think with Arizona, I'd love to see him get back to that. I'm also curious to see where exactly the punter situation is, but there's certainly some questions there. But I think also the other thing that's obviously a question mark is the coaching staff. Listen, I think Brent Brennan did a very, very nice job at San Jose State, all things considered, but this is obviously a step up. He's got a top 25 roster on his hands. Now, to his credit, he was able to hold on to this top 25 roster, and that is a big part of what he was able, that you got to give him a lot of credit. That is a great recruiting. Recruiting aspect that he was able to do. But at the end of the day, you've also got to show it. And in Dino Babers, like we talked about, you got some questions there. I don't really have any questions about Aquina. Some of the personnel I don't love, but overall I think they're going to be pretty good. And then, but like I said, with Brent Brennan, you're just going to have to see it. And like I said, I think he's going to be solid. He's more of a CEO type, but at the end of the day, we will find out. But overall, though, this is still a top 25 team. I just think that there's going to be some opportunities here for, guys to be able to answer some of the questions that we have about the team. And with the transfer portal, you got to, listen, with the rosters, you will not know what your roster is until August 1st. Everything is just completely different at this stage of the game. Everything is completely different. And you will not know until You'll not know until August 1st. Now, the coaching staff, they're going to keep looking for corners, obviously, and they're probably going to keep looking for linebackers. We'll find out exactly, what they can do, but there's still scholarships to be had, and there's still, room to be able to grow. So we will find that out. Now, moving over to basketball. Arizona is an interesting spot because you're going into the Big 12 now. Obviously, the Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the entire country. We've been over this many, many times, and listen, it's true. I mean, that just is what it is. The Big 12 is loaded. When you've got Kansas, it's going to be the preseason number one team in the country. You've also got Baylor, Houston, Iowa State. Like I said, Arizona is going to probably be the ninth team in the country preseason or something like that. And they're also going to probably be preseason 5 in the Big 12. That's just how loaded this conference is. But there are obviously some concerns. First of all, is how is this team going to deal with the grind of playing in the Big 12, where game in and game out, you are playing in packed arenas with hostile fans. I mean, that's something these kids haven't really done. I mean, you go to Oregon State or you go to Washington State, ASU, whatever the case may be, there are not a lot of people there. It's going to be a lot different when you're going to Iowa State or a place like that is absolutely, packed to the brim, and they've got good players as well. So that's a big question mark. And Tommy Lloyd is obviously a really, really good dude. I also don't know that Tommy Lloyd is necessarily the one that is going to, be the one that's going to tell people that that really get in their face about stop acting like a weenie type thing. So we will find that out. But again, I think that with Arizona, that is a concern. How are they going to deal with it? Big picture, I think they're going to be fine. But that is something that on paper you look at and you're like, all right, that's a question. But now from a roster perspective, what are some of these questions? Why don't we start up front and then we'll work our way back. Mount Crevis, I got a lot of faith in Mount Crevis. I think Mount Crevis is going to be very, very good for Arizona. But, you've also got to see it. Mount Crevis this past year had a lot of moments where he dropped the ball down to the court, where he just kind of looked like, like the game, like, he just wasn't quite strong enough. And I think that's something that Arizona is going to have to see, because, again, he's going to be going against COVID players. He's going to be going against fifth-year dudes. He's going to be going against some really strong guys. Obviously, Chris Rounds is going to do a lot of work with him in the weight room, and I think that I think that's something that Arizona fans would like to see. And I think he's going to be fine. I think he's got more natural skills than Umar Ballo, leader of men. But you also got to see it. Can he be as strong as Umar? Can he be able to get the rebounds? Can he be able to, just a whole bunch of different things and we'll find that out. But, Crevis, I think, is a question mark. Then another one is, I think, Trey Townsend. Now, listen, I think Trey Townsend's fantastic. These aren't really my concerns, but I do think that, how is he going to adapt to playing in a conference that is obviously completely, different than the Mountain West where he came from. But I still think he's going to be 12 points, 8 rebounds, something like that, and probably 3-4 assists. I think he's going to be more than fine. But again, that's still a question that I think, that people should rightfully have about him. Now, with Arizona, then the next thing is Caleb Love. Now, Caleb Love is an All-American type player, and not only is he an All-American type player, but he also finished the year very, 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 very poorly. Can he rebound from that? I have no doubt that he will, but I think that's still something that you got to be able to see, because again, the last time we saw him, he was not playing well, to put it mildly. He was taking one-legged threes, and it just didn't look good. And I think that's something that we you want to see. It's a legitimate question. Other one, can KJ Lewis make that jump? I think KJ will. But you also got to be able to see it. Lewis, I believe, is an NBA player. I believe he's going to be a top 15, top 20 pick. But will he be able to see that? And will he be able to show that from a shooting perspective, where he is able to, maybe make 38-40% of his 3-point shots, whatever the case may be? We will definitely find that out. But I also don't know that he won't be able to. But it's still a question. One thing, though, that it's not a question is FanDuel. All right, here's the deal with FanDuel. You can go to FanDuel and for a fact that your money is good and you're going to be able to bet on games right there. And guess what? The other cool thing about FanDuel is you can bet before the game, you can bet during the game, or you can bet futures. And again, your money is good. That is the great thing about FanDuel. Check it out. FanDuel.com/lockedon. This is another one of these ones where you will thank me later, because again, there's a lot of really, really good stuff going on with FanDuel. And listen, we are kind of in the dog days of sports season right now. But like I always say, there's nothing that makes it more enjoyable than being able to bet on something where you got a little bit of money in the game, and all of a sudden baseball, which I don't care at all about, becomes a little bit more fascinating. So again, check it out, FanDuel.com/locked-on. Another one, you will thank me later. All kinds of really, really good stuff. And I think the great thing too about FanDuel is that it provides you a lot of different opportunities. So again, check it out, FanDuel.com. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about some Arizona basketball possible weaknesses. Now, I don't think there's really any weakness with Jaden Bradley, but I think the question still is, how is he going to adapt to that starting point guard role? I think he's going to be just fine. I think that he is, honestly, I think he's going to be 12 points, 4 or 5 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists, and I think he's going to flirt with Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. But you still got to see it. He was stuck behind. He was stuck behind Boswell last year, and let's be honest here, that was absurd. I mean, Tommy Lloyd is an awesome coach, but he clearly plays some favorites when it comes to things, and I think Kylan Boswell is the epitome of that. Dude who he kind of played favors for, and hopefully those days are over. I think Jaden Bradley is going to be able to step in there and be just fine, though. I think the next question that it's fair to ask is, what about the bench? Because again, you've got a lot of these dudes are going to be unproven. Carter Bryant's a 5-star kid. I think Carter Bryant's going to be just fine, but how will he adjust to the physicality of the Big 12? I think that's a question. How will somebody like a Tobe Awaka, will he be able to stay out on the court? That's another question as well. So again, there are legitimate questions to be asked about where these guys are going to be able to stand up and how they're going to be able to stand up. But, and then after that, Henry Vasar, can he make any kind of a jump? But, I think the biggest thing for me is just how are they going to handle it game in and game out, playing in the tightest, these super packed arenas with these really, really rowdy fan bases with really talented teams going against them. We're going to find that one out. And again, I don't necessarily have the answer for that. I don't know that anybody really has the answer for that, but those are the questions. But either way, these are still, Arizona basketball is a top 10 team in the country, and Arizona football is a top 25 team. Now, again, it's not like they're Alabama. It's not like the football team is Alabama. So again, there are some legitimate questions, but I think with Arizona basketball as well, there's also some fair questions about, where exactly everything does stand as they go off to a bigger conference. So that's kind of where that's all at. Now, tomorrow we are going to talk more recruiting. We probably have some clarity on the Will Riley front, where exactly all of that plans. And if Arizona can get Will Riley, if Arizona gets Will Riley, how does that change everything from a prognostication point of view? Because things become a little bit different at that point if you can add a player of that caliber as one of your 8th or 9th guys off the bench. But that's what Arizona does. When a 5-star kid leaves, Arizona just hops in and gets another 5-star. That's how things roll. And there'll be some other names. Dame Sarr, we'll obviously continue to talk about. If Will Riley does bounce, Dame Sarr would definitely be another possibility as well. But either way, awesome stuff for Arizona football and basketball. Just wanted to talk about some of the question marks heading into the season, but shouldn't be things that Arizona can't address. On that note, though, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. As always, I am your host, Mike Luke, and we will be back with you tomorrow, again, talking a little bit of Arizona football, a little Arizona basketball, and some recruiting as well. Bear down, back the A, and thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.